Welcome to the Dive Heart First podcast, where we clear the mind and calm the nervous system so that we can dive into the intelligence of the heart and intuition of the body. I'm your host, Jen Walker, and today we are going to have a brain-changing conversation to drop being a perfectionist for good, while still keeping and maintaining our high standards for the things that we care about the most. Because the truth is, for some people, being a perfectionist has been a trauma response in the way to control things or to avoid criticism. And for others, being a perfectionist has been driven out of a fear of failure or a fear of not being enough. So, being a perfectionist is worse than useless, and it typically puts us into either a freeze state of procrastination, a flight state of not even doing the thing that we care about the most, or a fight or fawn state when we can't even receive the benefit or the value of criticism or feedback that comes in towards us for the things that we put out there. So, in a moment, we are going to pick apart all the drivers that have been causing being a perfectionist in a way that the subconscious mind will understand it. And so all you have to do is listen along, and I'm going to tell you a story. And by the end of this podcast, you might notice something that has shifted or changed in the ways of thinking, feeling, or behaving with the things that you really want to do, things that you really want to create, and the things that you really want to express. So, pour yourself a tea or just relax for a moment as I tell you a little story. So imagine this. You and I are headed to our friend's house. They just had a baby. Okay, so they just had a baby. We're being introduced to this brand new baby. So cute. Has that like new baby smell to it, all the things. And all of a sudden, I looked to you and I was like, look at that baby. What a loser. And you're like, okay. You at first you probably think I'm joking. Like I kind of joke a lot. And I go, okay. And then I continue on as if that baby thinks it's enough. And I'm just like talking this way for a while and I'm like completely deadpan. And in a moment you realize you're like, oh, Jen's not joking. Like what's going on? And so you're like, okay, time for an intervention here. And you're like, Jen, you love nature, you love getting outside. You would never look at a blade of grass and say, oh, that blade of grass is not enough. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Just like how you would look at a tree and say that same thing. Because the truth is that everything is enough. And that everyone, just like that baby and you and I, are whole, worthy, complete, deserving, loved, and enough. And as you're starting to talk to me, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to get how weird and ridiculous I had been about judging a baby for not being enough. And then you're like, yeah, exactly. Because you know that you are a timeless, boundless, powerful, limitless being. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I just forgot that from a moment. So as you see that washing over my face, and I really get it, that just like a baby is enough, that I am enough, and that everyone is enough. But all of a sudden, like I'm getting that, but then the baby craps its diaper. And I'm like, ugh, disgusting. What a failure. I can't believe it just crapped his diaper. And again, you're like, okay, what is going on with Jen? I'm going to need to talk to Jen. And you're like, Jen, no, the baby's not a failure. The baby just hasn't learned how to use the toilet yet. And it's like a skill like any other. So the baby is not a failure. And if we even pick apart failure, failure is just learning. There's no such thing as failure because as we're learning a new skill, we're going to do something until we learn how to do it. And just like that, I know you're an endurance runner, Jen, and you're talking to me, you know my history, and you're like, being an endurance runner, I'm sure even in your adulthood, you might have had a little whoopsie when it comes to the bathroom. And yet, you know that you don't have to go all the way back to the diaper stage, that you've learned that skill. And even though you can have an accident here or there, you don't go back to the very beginning as you've learned that skill. And then you can use the bathroom in the future. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. So, with that, I have really seen that, like, okay, through your wise observation, there is truly no failure, just failure of maybe not trying to learn a new skill, and that everything and everybody is whole, worthy, and enough. So we leave that house, but you're still a little worried about me. So you give me a call. And you know that I like hiking. So you ring me up and you're like, hey, Jen, do you want to go for a hike? Because you just want to check in. You want to see if I'm okay. And so you're like, hey, do you want to go for a hike on Sunday? I'm like, yeah, only if you can promise me it won't rain. And if it doesn't rain, promise me it won't be too sunny and hot. And you're like, huh, interesting. Well, Jen, just like how the sun rises and the sun sets, you know that you can't control anything external to you, but you can always control your responses. So if it rains, we'll just wear rain gear. And if it's too sunny and hot, we can just wear a hat and bring extra water. And as you start talking to me in that way, like I'm getting it. I'm like, oh, right. Yeah, I can't control anything external to me. And I can always control my response. So we meet up. It's Sunday and we're going for a hike. And you're like, Jen, listen, just checking in. You've been a little different these days. Like, is everything okay? And I was like, oh, yeah, like, thanks for asking. I've actually started this new podcast and I've been really worried about criticism as I put it out there. You're like, oh, yeah, I get it. And as you start talking to me, you're like, you know what, Jen, you don't have to worry about being criticized. I'm like, oh, yeah, really? You're like, yeah, expect it. Expect that people will criticize you and criticize your podcast. I'm like, oh, geez, that's like a little hard to hear. And then you start describing it because I understand everything in nature. And you're like, listen, when people are looking out into nature, they might look at that blade of grass, but prefer that cedar tree over there. Or people looking at that cedar tree might actually prefer the river. And so all of this has nothing to do with the river, the tree, or the blade of grass. It all has to do with data about that person and their opinions about their preference. So when people criticize you, know that it's data. And if it's really harsh and mean criticism, do you think that that person is having a good day or a bad day? I'm like, oh, yeah, fair point. Like anyone that's being really mean and has no, good little nuggets of feedback is probably having a really bad day. And you're like, exactly. So with people, like we don't know what's going on with them, but it is data about what's going on with them. So we could even just even wish them well and wish them love and support. I'm like, I like that. I like thinking about things that way. And you're like, also, people will give you constructive criticism and feedback. And like, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater because there's probably some really good stuff in there. And you know a lot about me and you know that I've been skating all my life. And you're like, you're never going to be as good as you're going to get. I'm like, ah, yeah, true. And you're like, just like you started to skate when you were 3 years old, right, Jen? I'm like, yeah, 3 years old. And you're like, I bet you were a lot better at skating at when you were skating at 33. I'm like, I was. So you're like, that's it. So whenever you get any sort of feedback or criticism, see what's valuable there for you and use it to your advantage as you're still learning this skill. I'm like, I like how you think. So you're seeing me, I'm getting some blood flow back into my face, a smile. I'm like, oh, I'm really, really getting it. And you're feeling good because you've been helping me out with all of this. And then you chime in with one last thing and you say, guess what? I'm like, oh, what's that? And you're like, I was just reading this neuroscience magazine. I'm like, you were? And you're like, yeah. And and you said, so I just learned that the mind, anything that we actively avoid, the mind perceives as danger, a threat, or even death. I'm like, no way. And you're like, way. So, moral of the story, all you have to do with the things that you fear is do it and don't die. I'm like, stop it. You're like, yeah, do it, don't die. Notice that you didn't die. And then that's it. Then you've done it and you completely rewire the circuitry in your brain. I'm like, stop it. And you're like, yeah. So if you're really afraid of fear, if you're really afraid of criticism, go towards the criticism. Do things that might even provoke criticism. I'm like, stop it, stop it, stop it. And you're like, no, seriously. So when you go for the things that you fear about the most, and if it even happens, great. Notice that it happened. Notice that you didn't die. And then it will completely fire and rewire a new circuitry to take you forward in your journey of doing anything and everything that you care about the most. So that's a little fun story. And when in doubt, I like to say, mantra it out. One of my favorite mantras and why this podcast episode was birthed today was this mantra of done is better than perfect. And last week, I was doing a podcast episode on what is hypnosis. And it's something like so near and dear to my heart. And my intention with this podcast is to be as succinct as I can and compact these episodes so they're potent and powerful. And last week, I kid you not, the words were just not coming out. And I just had this mantra that I kept on hearing. It's like, done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. And for me, I'm like, well, that's great. And I also know the episode topic for next week. And as I did it, and even like producing and getting last week's episode out, I got invaluable feedback. And even when I sent it out, I was like, oh, neat. Like I can always go back. And I think last week's episode, after I did it and got that invaluable feedback, I think could have been 2 to 3 different episodes. And great thing about that is I'm learning a new skill. So I get to like touch on those topics again. I get to like separate them and maybe, get in more the nuances of everything. Anyway, so that beautiful mantra, if this is for you, is done is better than perfect. So think about something that is very close to your heart, that you care about deeply, doing, creating, or expressing, and do that now. All right. If you've liked this episode, please share it with somebody that you care about. And that is it. Until next week, thank you so much for spending part of your day here with me. I love you, and go out and have an absolutely tremendous day.